And Mark, let's move on. The next team we are talking about is the Indianapolis Colts. Before we get into it, make sure to go on Apple Podcasts and rate and review, if I can say English correctly on this podcast. Rate and review the onside kick. It means the world to us. That 5-star rating really helps us out, gets in the ears of more people, lets people know why they should check out the onside kick. But moving into the Colts, this is a team where the numbers are a little bit better from last year. So you've got offensive yards per game. They were 7th overall with 386 yards. That'll be Andrew Luck. 5th in points per game, 27.1. Defensively, they were probably maybe the worst defensively, but not by much in the AFC South. 11th in defensive yards per game, 339 per game. And then 10th in scoring, giving up 21.5. They were not the worst in yards per game, but they were the worst in points per game in the division because the other ones were top 4 defenses in that. This is a team over free agency that brings in guys like you got Margus Hunt, Devin Funchess is the big one on a 1-year deal, Justin Houston, Ed Rusher coming in on a 2-year deal. And the thing I want to start with here is last year we talked about, and Shane O'Mac, who follows us on Twitter, was all over the Frank Reich hire and Frank Reich. Frank Reich had a good year.
Sure did.
First year, coming over from Philly, winning record, going into the playoffs, winning in the playoffs. They beat Houston 21-7 before losing to Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes 31-13. What are the odds for you, Mark, that this team replicates its success from 2018, where they sit there and last year they were a 10-6 team? Do they do that again? And is this a team that could maybe make more noise in the playoffs in 2019?
I think so. I think this is a team that can replicate what they did before. You look at their draft and they really load up on defense. Also get themselves a really nice wide receiver in Paris Campbell. He's one of my favorites. I'm really excited to see what they have added to this team that already was really good. The thing about the Colts last year was I think they kind of overperformed a little bit. They kind of really started to just start riding this team. And I think we saw that in the playoffs a little bit when they kind of got up against some really strong talent that they just didn't quite look ready to compete with that. But this is a team that you look at guys like T.Y., Funchess, Campbell. You look at Marlon Mack. You look at, of course, Andrew Luck, who is your quarterback, who now has a full year of playing to be better, to be healthy, to finally be who Andrew Luck is meant to be.
You say be better, but I look at the stats last year. 67% completion, 45, almost 4,600 yards, a 39-15 touchdown to INT ratio.
But here's the scary thing.
He
can be better. He can be even better than that.
He could be MVP Hall of Fame better.
He can. I don't want Andrew Luck's career, his legacy to be, can you imagine if Andrew Luck didn't get hurt?
Yeah.
You don't want it to be that. I really do want to see them be as good as, or see him be as good as he can be. Of course, unfortunately, he's probably going to continuously lose in the Super Bowl to, Chicago and Mitchell Trubisky. He's not going to be that good, but I want to see him be good.
You still got to get revenge over that 2007 Super Bowl.
We got to get it back.
Mark, what Super Bowl are you talking about? I don't think that ever happened.
I saw that Super Bowl. It was great. Devin Hester got that touchdown. Wonderful Super Bowl. Loved every second of that kick return.
But I'll be honest, I'm high on this team. I think that, obviously, I think it's between them and Houston and Jacksonville, depending on Nick Foles does, to be in the hunt for this division. It just depends on some things that you already mentioned. If Andrew Luck stays healthy and can replicate last season, they're going to be in shape. Marlon Mack, he only played 12 games and was almost a 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah.
And had 9 touchdowns on the year. Give me more of that, big boy. Give me I want to see in a 1,000-yard rushing season. If he plays 16 games, there's no way Marlon Mack is not getting 1,000 yards if he plays every game this season.
Yeah.
And then I want to see how many touchdowns he can get. Because he had 9 in 12 games. Is he going to get 15 in what? If I go 13 in 16 games next season? Like, it could be insane. And then receiving, it just comes down to, like, last year it was mainly T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah.
And then Eric Ebron had the most. You bring up Paris Campbell. I wonder what his role is going to be in this offense because he also gives you a guy. The thing I loved about him in college was Ohio State would use him on that like jet sweep kind of a screen where it's basically you hike it back to Andrew Luck in the shotgun. Paris Campbell comes across the front and he can like flip it, just flip it out to Campbell. And Campbell takes it and could run it up the sideline. And also,
and that's exactly
Adam Humphries.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think you want out of Paris Campbell. You just want a guy who just got to get the ball in his hand.
Not Adam Humphries. I'm thinking Titans. Devin Funchess.
Yeah.
Is who I'm thinking of.
Campbell, I think you just got to get the ball in his hand. That's all the game plan is, letting him make some noise himself. I mean, T.Y. is a very similar type of guy. You just want the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
And he can make some noise. So this is a team that can be deadly. They can be deadly offensively if they start to just all gel and play the way they're supposed to, because they got a slow start last year and then they really got rolling.
And I mean, does Eric Ebron again have that 13 touchdown performance in him, where it's basically, hey, get to the red zone. Now it's like we can use Paris Campbell in the backfield, we can go Marlon Mack, or we can go with a tight end kind of a target in Eric Ebron. And then defensively, like that's the big thing too. That I know this team and Chris Ballard has been drafting a very defensive team, like you mentioned this year in the draft, going heavily into defense. You've got Yasin, the cornerback from Temple. They get a linebacker from TCU. They get another one from Stanford. 2 safeties, 2 more linebackers. And this is a team that I did not expect to be as good defensively as they were. Could this defense even be better in 2019?
Well, I think it should be better because, yes, the defense performed really well. There's no getting around that. But they had their moments where they were exposed a little bit. And I think that you can kind of see with this draft class, they're trying to get as much depth as possible. They're trying to get as much kind of relief guys as they possibly can, trying to kind of reload. So they're trying to kind of give themselves what they need to have a sustaining defense. And I think a fear that they have right now, especially with Ballard, is there's some young guys on this defense who you're going to have to pay. You assume you're going to probably want to pay some of them, keep them around. So you got to bring that next class in to get guys in case you're not going to be able to pay everybody.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to start losing some because, that's just what happens. You can't keep everybody. Somebody's got to get going. So you go heavy in the draft. Some of these guys are going to pan out pretty well. Some of them might just be special teamers, and that's all right. But you're going to have a lot of guys that you're trying to get there to be better because there's not much better this offense can really do.
So the thing that I'm looking at, too, is this freaking schedule. And, like, because this is a team where I feel like Frank Reich exceeded expectations, especially on my front, because it's like, I feel like we were like, well, let's see what we're going to get from Frank Reich in that first year. And they make the playoffs. Andrew Luck looks amazing. Marlon Mack is amazing in his 12 games. T.Y. Hilton over 1,000 yards last year. Defensively, they were a lot better. And it's like, holy shit, this is a team. Like, this is an actual team. And it's like, they go out there, beat the Texans in the wild card round. And then the divisional round, it's like, okay, here's your test. Can you beat the Kansas City Chiefs? And they couldn't.
Yeah.
People wanted to go back in history and play like the rematch of, I know this one was in KC, but like before when they played in Indy in the Peyton Manning days and how the Colts had the Chiefs number. Well, Patrick Mahomes is on this Chiefs team and it was just too much for him. I almost look at the schedule and entirely for the AFC South and go, I just think the NFL hates this division.
It's tough. Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is, yet again, a beginning of the schedule I do not like. You get the Chargers on the road, which winnable game, but it's a tough winnable game to start your season.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get Tennessee, but it's at Tennessee to start. Winnable game, but still, ooh. Then you get the Chiefs week 5, where to me, the only big winnable games is like, I could see them 2-3, basically 2-3, 2-3 or 3-3. 2-3, 3-2 is what I was going to say. And it depends on those first 2 games. Because I think they're going to split them.
I don't know.
It's just who they win, who they lose against.
I think the Colts have a fairly, compared to the rest of their division, a fairly easy schedule. Like, yes, you're going back-to-back road games. One of them is a divisional game against Tennessee. Colts, I think, have a decent shot at beating Tennessee in Tennessee. Falcons are a good team, but they weren't a very good team last year, so we got to bounce
Raiders
them back.
Were the ones that I was for sure giving them.
But then later on, you get to play the Broncos at home, so yes, they have a good defense, but you're going to be a better offense. You get to play the Dolphins. You know, you're going to play the Buccaneers because everybody plays the Buccaneers. You have some of these games that are kind of like, all right, we can win these games. You have a little bit more winnable games than the rest of your, divisional opponents are. I think they're gonna be fine. The thing I don't like is that they have to play 4 road games in their or 3 road games in their last 4 games. That's a tough part. But depending on what the Jaguars are, it might not be that difficult. Same thing with the Panthers. You've got a couple of question mark teams at the end, and then you got the Buccaneers, which I think should be a win. So you really only have one of those games where you're like, yeah, that one's going to be really tough. But the rest of them are probably games where, there's questions to this team. Your questions to the Panthers. Which Panther team are we going to see this year? How's Cam Newton going to do? Is he going to be healthy this year? Jaguars, is Nick Foles going to be as good as he is? Is this defense going to start to fall apart because Jalen Ramsey can't shut up and Tom Coughlin wants to get rid of him? There are questions to those games where I think the Colts have a better route, although it's not perfect, it's not easy. But they have a better route than the rest of everybody does.
I disagree, and I only disagree because the team that we have not talked about, I think, has the best ending to the schedule. And the reason why I say that is, just looking at the last 3 games, you've got at New Orleans, home against Carolina, at Jacksonville. And am I saying they're going to go 0-3? No. But if you're fighting for a division, fighting for a wild card spot, and we have already mentioned, we think Houston's going to be fighting up there for the division. We think that Jacksonville is going to be up there fighting for the division, and this Titan team was 9-7, so they're no joke that you can just throw to the wayside. If you look at the rest of the teams in that time, the last 3, Jaguars have Raiders, Falcons, Colts. Not super hard. Raiders, Falcons, we'll see what we get from them. Colts is probably the hardest team. Then the Titans, we already talked about them. Texans, Saints, Texans, good effing luck. And then Houston, Tennessee, Tampa Bay, who's probably going to be a team that is trying to get that number 1 draft pick if they have not gotten it already, and they're looking to lose that game or looking to not play as many starters as they want because, we maybe want to get that higher draft pick. And then Tennessee, where I almost feel like especially like Jacksonville and Houston, their later 3 games, last 3 games, are so much easier than the Colts, to where the Colts might sit there and go, fuck, we got to win all 3.
I do think
2 of these are on the road.
I do think the Texans have a little bit of an easier schedule. It's like, I do think you're discrediting the Buccaneers a little much. I don't think they're going to try and lose their last game. Have you met Bruce Arians? Well,
Good
probably
point.
not.
Good point.
No, neither one of us have met him, but we've seen him.
Lawyered.
Right? I think he's okay to try and win some games. And I think the Texans do have a little bit of an easier schedule. We'll get to them later. But I do think the Colts have enough of those easier games. You sit there and like, how do the Colts get to play the Dolphins? We know how, but it's lucky that they get to play them. Yeah, Pittsburgh's a tougher team than the Dolphins
But that's what I'm saying. Like, for example, the Jaguars, they've got, to me, the easiest. You get the Bengals and the Jets.
I don't know. I think the Bengals and the Jets can both perform pretty well this year.
I mean, I don't have
Bengals
those
got
guys
decimated by injuries last year.
Good point. I just don't have those two teams.
It just depends on
high.
if you trust Adam Gase or not.
Yeah, and then it's like the Titans. You get the Browns and
Tough.
who's their the Bills. Mm-hmm. The Browns and the Bills. So one tough,
Bills
one
is a
not
question
so
mark.
tough. And then Houston that we'll get to. Theirs is Baltimore, New England. So good effing luck.
Yeah, I'd say that's kind of tough.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe it comes down to those games in the two where it's like we play the Steelers, the rest of our division doesn't. Is it going to come down to those games and who wins those ones? Because playing the NFC South is so tough. Playing the AFC West is so tough. To me, those are two divisions I would not want on my schedule at the same time.
Yeah, it can be challenging. Colts are a really good team, though. They can make it happen.
Mm-hmm. I will ask you this, and I know we're far out from it. Division champs, wild card, missed the playoffs. What do you see from the Colts?
I'm leaning for the Colts. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm leaning for the Colts to be wild card.
Okay. Yeah, to me, it's all like this is a division I'm torn because
I think it's going to be so similar to last year. Of these teams are just like one away from each other.
They're going to beat each other up to try to do it. Like the thing I hate about the AFC is there's so many teams I want in that wild card spot, and I just can't have it that way. Like I would love if Houston, Jacksonville, and Indy were all in the playoffs next year, but I'll be honest. I want the Chargers in the playoffs as well.
Yeah.
And there's no way I can get there's no way I can get Houston, Indy, Jacksonville, and LA in my playoffs. One of these teams is going to have to fall out just with how many playoff spots there are. And I think that's what it is coming down to the end. Obviously, the Texans, we'll talk about them to end the podcast. But I feel like one of these three teams is obviously going to win the division. The other two get to fight with the Chargers for the wild card spot.
Well, I think you're blanking on, or not giving any credit to
the Steelers.
Steelers or the Ravens or the Browns.
Well, the Ravens, I think, will win the North, so they're in. I'm talking like wild card is what I'm talking about.
I think there's a lot of teams that are going to be competing for that.
I'm disrespecting the Browns.
You are disrespecting the Browns in that part, but it's all right.
I mean, I would say I'm disrespecting the Steelers, maybe the Titans, and maybe the Browns. Because I don't see the Dolphins, the Broncos, the Bengals, the Bills, the Jets, or the Raiders competing for playoff spots next year. I mean, injuries happen to any team. Anything can happen. But Colts fans, let us know what you guys think down below in that comment section. Are you going to grow off of last year? How much better is this team going to be than 2018? Let us know what you guys are thinking down below in that comment section.